Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We are deconstructing a highly emotional, incredibly pivotal moment in sports history, the true anatomy of a heartbreak. We're looking at the closing chapter of one of football's absolute greatest giants on the ultimate global stage. You know, when you watch a legend at work, you kind of expect a certain Hollywood ending, right? But reality doesn't always stick to the script, so we're going to analyze the intensely human reaction of Cristiano Ronaldo immediately following his final World Cup exit.
Everything we're discussing today hinges on this one stark reality. Spain 1, Portugal 0. In sports, numbers are absolute. There's no arguing with them. When the referee blew that final whistle, sealing that exact 1-0 victory for Spain, a sudden, heavy finality just washed over the entire stadium. That sharp sound of the whistle? It didn't just end a 90-minute football match. It instantly cemented the permanent reality of his defeat. It is literally that split-second transition from holding on to hope to the absolute certainty of an ending.
And that brings us to this really powerful quote sourced directly from the events of that night. The crushing weight of the moment hit Cristiano Ronaldo all at once. Notice those specific words, crushing weight and all at once. This wasn't a gradual coming to terms with a loss. No way. This was an intense, immediate, emotional burden dropping down on him the very second his legendary World Cup career came to a sudden permanent end. Okay, let's dive into this. Because to truly understand the sheer magnitude of this realization, we need to analyze the physical toll it took on his body right there on the pitch.
Section 1. The physical collapse. Moving away from the scoreboard and looking directly down at the AT&T Stadium turf, let's intentionally dilate time for a second and witness the immediate, undeniable physical toll this realization took on an athlete famous for his invincible aura. Step 1. The finality of the defeat completely broke him, and he dropped heavily to his knees right there on the grass. Step 2. The first wave of overwhelming grief just took over, and he buried his face in his hands. And Step 3. His chest began heaving with heavy, ragged sobs. I mean, this is a man who has spent his entire life demanding absolute perfection from himself and his surroundings. And right here, we see him breaking down completely, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably under that iconic red jersey.
Section 2. Joy versus complete isolation. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark sensory juxtaposition happening simultaneously right there on the pitch.
To truly grasp the depth of his personal tragedy, just look at the contrast here. For the Spanish players, it's a moment of pure euphoria, filled with joyous, deafening celebrations. But for Ronaldo, all of that celebration simply became a distant blur of noise. He was sitting there in the absolute center of the pitch, completely shattered, weeping openly. He was experiencing total, absolute isolation in front of the entire world, peeking through his fingers with bloodshot eyes, just staring blankly at the grass. It is a profound sensory juxtaposition.
Now, of course, he wasn't physically alone. His teammates and the coaching staff immediately rushed to his side to try and bridge that gap of isolation. They offered quiet words of comfort, placed supportive hands on his back. But despite this immediate support structure, Ronaldo remained entirely inconsolable. The grief was so overwhelming, the realization so incredibly heavy, that he was totally unreachable by those around him.
Section 3. 23 years in one moment.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is zooming out from that localized patch of grass, we really need to understand the broader psychological weight of this specific 1-0 loss. It comes down to this number, 20+. This represents the over 2 decades this man spent basically defying gravity on the football pitch. For more than 20 years, he was systematically breaking records, pushing human limits, and demanding perfection. It's a lifetime of relentless forward momentum, all coming to a screeching halt.
And we follow that up with the number 23. So the crucial point is that this wasn't just a bad game. This was the raw emotion of an entire 23-year international journey ending. A journey spanning 23 years, concluding permanently. Not with him holding a trophy, but with him kneeling on the turf.
And the catalyst for that 23-year journey ending? A single agonizing moment of defensive complacency. You can just feel the immense frustration of a late goal mixed violently with the realization that time had simply finally run out. You can imagine how sick with disappointment he looked. All that effort, all those decades, pouring out of him in a flood of tears because of one fleeting defensive lapse that ultimately sealed his fate.
Section 4. The long, painful walk. The match is over, reality has fully set in, and now we witness the sheer physical effort it takes just to leave the pitch. Let's move to the sequence of his exit and see how this builds. In the first second, he finally manages to pull himself up off the grass. His face is wet, and he keeps his head bowed.
In the next second, we see a fleeting, kind of futile attempt to hide his vulnerability. He wipes his eyes using the collar of his shirt. By the third second, he slowly begins the long, painful walk toward the tunnel, a literal physical withdrawal from the grandest stage of all. And then, in the fourth second of this sequence, he makes the deliberate choice to look up one last time at the roaring stands.
And what does he do when he looks up? He offers a faint, tearful wave to the traveling Portuguese supporters. Despite the absolute heartbreak, with his face twisted in pure grief, he acknowledges the fans who are actively chanting his name in consolation. This cements a truly heartbreaking final image. One of football's absolute greatest giants is not leaving the pitch bathed in a flash of glory, but rather he's walking away in a quiet, devastating storm of tears.
Which leaves us with this final, profound thought to consider based on everything we've just unpacked today. Is a football giant's legacy defined more by their flashes of glory or by the sheer vulnerability of their devastating defeats? You know, the numbers and the trophies tell one side of the story for sure, but the raw human emotion we've deconstructed today, the uncontrollable tears, the isolation, the heavy realization of time running out, well, that tells another. Think about that the next time you watch a legend take the field. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive brought a new layer of understanding to an absolutely unforgettable moment in sports history. Catch you next time.